Hello, let us talk about Snowflake storage for Apache Iceberg tables. We have seen managed Iceberg tables in Snowflake. We have also seen unmanaged Iceberg tables in Snowflake. Unmanaged means externally managed by different catalogs. But what is Snowflake storage for Iceberg tables? Snowflake storage for Iceberg is in public preview as of May 14th. What it means, there is no external cloud storage setup required for managing Iceberg tables. It is completely managed by Snowflake. Currently, it is available on AWS and Azure. So, Snowflake storage for Iceberg tables is the session that we are going to talk about. I've given a brief introduction of what is Snowflake storage for Iceberg tables. So, you have an Iceberg table, it is completely managed by Snowflake. But what is important to understand here is there is no external volume required. There is no additional overhead of like integrating with the different cloud service providers, creating catalog linked databases, or creating um, catalog integration and external volumes. So what we are saying here is it is reducing a lot of operational overhead in this case. But what else it is supporting? I'm going to create an iceberg table in Snowflake, and it is completely managed by Snowflake. And there is no external volume I'm going to give as an external cloud-based volume that I'm going to provide. So what exactly it is? How does it look like? How is it different from a managed iceberg table in Snowflake supported by a cloud provider like AWS or Azure? Let us see the syntax. Creating an iceberg table with Snowflake storage. If you carefully observe here, the create iceberg table and with the iceberg table name with catalog equals to Snowflake, it is same for even managed iceberg tables. But the difference here is external volume equals to Snowflake managed. When you create a managed iceberg table in Snowflake, you typically give external volume equals to the real external volume that you have created beforehand, where it will provide access to your cloud service provider. But in this case, I'm not going to give anything, any name, named external volume. I'm saying Snowflake underscore managed. And this is for a permanent table. If I also wanted a transient table, I can use the same catalog, Snowflake as catalog, and external volume is Snowflake managed, but a transient as a keyword before the iceberg table. See how simple it is. Just providing catalog and external volume and two keywords, Snowflake and Snowflake managed, that will be a complete syntax for creating an iceberg table on Snowflake storage. Key parameters, we have already discussed about it, that is listed on the right side. And we already know the difference between a permanent table and a transient table. Transient table typically skips failsafe storage. That would reduce cost for non-critical data. And now let us compare creating an iceberg table for a permanent iceberg table versus transient table. So default table type is permanent if you don't specify, or you can also specify transient for transient tables, and protected by failsafe 7-day recovery, no failsafe protection. I want to highlight one thing here is typically managed Snowflake iceberg tables provided where your data resides in your cloud provider, you will not have a fail-safe mechanism. You have to take care, your CSP provider that you are working with has to take care on, like archival stuff. But in this case, because it is a Snowflake managed storage, failsafe is provided just like Snowflake managed Snowflake native tables. Same protection as standard Snowflake tables on the permanent side, and the transient side is exactly follows the transient table behavior of native tables. Because there is failsafe included, there is a higher storage cost. For the transient tables, you don't see a storage cost because of lower storage cost because no failsafe. You definitely want a permanent table for production data and critical data. And if you do not want critical data and you can recreate it, typically you go with transient tables. Billing, what you pay for, and the focus is more on Snowflake managed storage for Iceberg, and the storage cost, pay per byte stored, tracked in storage bytes column of the storage usage view. Only committed files are billed, abandoned files are free. So if you see any committed files, that means if you are able to access that file from table, that means it is you see the cost and all for that. But if you cannot access that file, probably it is an orphan file residing somewhere, it is free. Request cost, when it comes to a managed Iceberg storage table, Snowflake storage, if you want to read the data from external engines, if they support IRC with vendor credentials, the only cost on the Snowflake side is the request cost, which means it is billed when an external query engine access tables via Horizon IRC catalog, via IRC REST endpoints. For example, put, copy, list for operations, or get and select operations. And also we can see that cost under the storage request history. Data transfer costs. Let us say if my compute engine like Spark is somewhere in the other cloud and I want to access Snowflake managed Iceberg storage table, and there is a data transfer fee involved because you are actually working on cross clouds regions. So there is a transfer of data, and per byte charge is included when external engines, cross regions, or class providers to access the table. So there are three different ways you see the cost for Snowflake Iceberg storage tables. Replication, very important for BCDR. How the replication works? You can create a failover or replication groups, and object types, you do not need external volumes because it is Snowflake managed external volume. And Snowflake auto manages the storage for replicated tables. GCP accounts are not supported at this moment. And when you create a failover, you create a failover group on the primary account and include the object types. In this case, you have provided databases. Allowed databases is whatever the database that I wanted to select. And allowed accounts, and I'm going to give my primary account here. Now, I'm going to replicate this in my secondary account. And so once you're creating a failover group, if I want to access that particular secondary group where I'm failing over my primary, and if there is a problem with the primary account, I'm going to enable my secondary as primary. Until then, I'm going to refresh in my secondary account just to continue to replicate this data. So it is important to understand replication works with Iceberg managed storage, Snowflake managed Iceberg tables. Migration nodes. Private preview tables on non-Snowflake managed volumes are auto-migrated on secondary accounts. Old external volumes get replicated but is not attached to the table. All uses on the secondary are blocked. The recommended approach: drop old private view tables and create with external volume as Snowflake managed for Snowflake managed Iceberg storage tables before enabling the replication. What are some considerations and limitations? Cloud support. Currently, Snowflake's Iceberg storage is supported only for AWS and Azure accounts. Encryption. You would see server-side encryption only. Customer managed keys and secret secures are not supported because it is managed by Snowflake storage. It is not customer managed Snowflake storage. Cloning rules. Cloning is allowed only when a source and clones are both permanent or both transient. The mixed type cloning fails. What it means: when you have a permanent table on the Snowflake storage Iceberg table, and you can create a clone of the same permanent table, you cannot create a transient table out of a permanent table. Similarly, if you create a transient Iceberg table on Snowflake managed Iceberg storage, you would see a clone of a transient table and you cannot create a permanent table out of that. Data ingestion. Both Snowpipe and Snowpipe streamings are supported and works with permanent and transient tables. So you can see the Snowpipe and Snowpipe streaming is supported for Iceberg tables that is on Snowflake managed Iceberg storage. So with that, I'm going to just read out some key takeaways on what we learned about Snowflake managed storage. I'm particularly stressing here Snowflake managed storage, which is a storage that is provided by Snowflake, not the cloud providers that you manage. So there is no additional external overhead involved when you are setting up Iceberg tables on Snowflake managed storage. The permanent and transient table types are supported. Permanent table has failsafe included, just like native table, and transient tables you can create for cost optimization. It integrates well with Horizon Catalog for external query engine access. What it means: if I have a Spark query engine that is running somewhere else and it uses Horizon Catalog IRC REST endpoints via vendor credentials to read the metadata and do the read and writes via external query engines. Build for storage, requests like external engine access, and also cross-region transfer. Replication is supported. Currently, GCP accounts are excluded. As we talked about, it is supported only for AWS and Azure accounts only. Server-side encryption is supported and no client-side encryption. So with that, I'm going to end this video by considering that we have learned something out of Snowflake managed storage Iceberg tables.